Hello, hi, good morning.
Hey, Hridyesh. How you doing? Good morning.
Good,
What
thank
time,
you.
what time is it there? Where are you, by the way?
I am near like Nepal, northern India.
Ah, nice.
So it's
Nice.
about
Beautiful,
3 p.m. Yep.
beautiful place. Yeah, I've never been there, but I've seen a lot of pictures. I'll have to wait until my daughter is a little bit older, but I would love to go to the mountains there.
Yep.
I love mountains. So yeah, that's a good place. Really, a little bit big mountains for me now, but too big maybe. But yeah, I don't have to go to the forest mountain. So yeah, cool, love it. So um, well, one thing
Okay.
I wanted to mention. So I'm recording this call. I hope you don't mind. You see that there is another participant there. It's called Fran's
Yeah,
Fathom.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Fathom. I guess everyone is starting to know it. So this is an AI to take notes, and it's also recording the call. So yeah, so that we can get the video and the notes as well. So also wanted to ask you, like, how comfortable are you with sharing the recording afterwards? Is it okay? Is it, if not, that's fine as well. So don't feel the pressure. Okay.
As long as it helps someone, I would be glad to share the recording
Yeah.
because I feel a lot of the folks who is starting would find this very useful.
Yes, that's why. That's why I wanted to record this. So lately, what I'm trying to do is, whenever I find some time, some spare time, if I have like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and I don't know what to do, or I'm not in the mood to code, or I'm not in the mood of doing something else, or I have like some spare minutes, what I do is like I start impromptu uh, meetings, live meetings on Slack. I only did one, but I want to do more, like at least once a week, so that anyone can join and ask me anything about this in KPI. And yeah, so I did one last week as a test, and it was good. I mean, you cannot expect a lot of people joining because it's like, hey, I'm going live in 5 minutes. So if you want to join, or
Yeah.
in 10 minutes, so people don't know beforehand. I even myself don't know beforehand. Like, it's just like a casual improvised, right? So yeah, but still might help someone. And they are all recorded because they're live, and they're all uploaded directly to YouTube on AsyncAPI YouTube, and so that people can get can watch the recording afterwards. So you say it's useful for more people, not just the people who attended the call. Right? So yeah. Anyway, so if you're comfortable with that, I will upload the call on the YouTube, on the AsyncAPI YouTube afterwards, and yeah, so it's useful for more people. So tell
Uh,
me,
so
how can I help you, man?
uh, Before I begin, some of these questions seem very basic and very elementary to you, but please,
No.
I'm just trying to I better understand this. So my first
Remove,
question is,
remove this from your head, man. Remove before you continue. Remove this from your head. No question is stupid. No question is basic. Like, remove that thought from your head. Uh, Please, I tell you all, like, don't feel bad for asking stupid questions or basic questions, because, or seemingly stupid questions, because no question is stupid or basic. And if they are, they might be for you or for me, sorry, um, but they may not be for someone else, including you. That's why you ask. Yeah, so don't feel bad about it, please. So ask anything you want, from the very basic to the most complex things, and I'll try to reply. Of course.
uh, so my first question is, there are most of the async API files that are in the documentation are YAML files, right? On how
Mhm.
to use YAML. But whenever we are developing, right, or whenever we are programming, so I have some experience with programming, but we are not going to use YAML files. Most of the times we are going to use Python, JavaScript. So there's
Mhm.
not a lot of documentation on how to integrate async API into programming principles. And I tried the web graphic interface of the YAML, but if you could just help me understand how should I start using async API into, let's say, JavaScript, because the YAML file is a bit it's not, it's a bit specific. If you have to go and use YAML for a specific project, you would rather use it in JavaScript, right? So it's easy.
Yeah, so I think I know what you mean. So the thing is that so YAML and JSON are two formats that are language independent. So you could be using YAML with JavaScript. You can use YAML with Python, with Java, with any language. Literally, every language supports YAML, right? In different ways. So of course, you cannot copy the YAML piece, let's say, of code and paste it inside the JavaScript code, because that won't compile. That will tell you that that's not valid JavaScript code or Python code or whatever. But every language has libraries that you can use to load the YAML and convert it to a JavaScript object or a Python object or a Python dictionary, I think it's the name, or a Java object, or all this stuff, right? So every language has not one, but multiple libraries you can choose, right? And to load that YAML. Or JSON, same thing applies to JSON. So JSON is used widely, and we use YAML because it's easier to read. Unless it's a huge YAML, then it can become complex. But it's usually easier to read than JSON, or that's what most people say. That's opinionated. That's an opinion. But yeah. So the thing is that the reason we use YAML and JSON for this, and that's the only two formats you can use for AsyncAPI, is because it's language neutral, right? So it has nothing to do with the programming language. It's YAML and JSON are ways to define structured data. So imagine you can open the text editor and start typing. I want a server that has all of this in plain English, right? What I'm saying. I want a server that connects that is using Kafka protocol. The host is there. I want to have this channel and this other channel. I'm gonna send messages to this channel and receive from this channel, blah blah blah. You can write all of this in plain English, let's say, as I'm with the same words that I'm using while speaking, right? But that's not structured data, right? That is not something that the machine can easily parse and understand, right? I mean, with the evolution of AI, maybe one day you can write this and and it will understand it. But so what we're doing with YAML and JSON is the same, but writing it in a structured way. So that's why you see this AsyncAPI 2.6.0. That's like telling the machine that this file is about AsyncAPI 2.6, right? There's a list of servers. There's a list of information, right? Info object, channels, all this stuff, right? Messages. So it's like telling the machine, like, hey, here's my information, and I'm giving it to you in this specific format, just so you're able to read the document and understand what are the objects that you can find there, right? Like the title of my application is this, the version of my application is this one, the list of channels is this one, the amount of messages are this one, and this is like the structure of the message, blah blah blah, all the information, right? Again, in a structured way, right? So YAML and JSON are just for this, for structured data in this case, right? Structured data definition, if you want, and you have to structure it in a specific way. So the way that the AsyncAPI specification commands, right? So the AsyncAPI specification tells you like you should be structuring it that specific way. You should be writing it this way, like AsyncAPI 2.6 info colon and then title inside, version inside the info object, and so on. So it's a specific format, right? On top of YAML. So we're using YAML, but not any kind of YAML. It's a specific YAML format or JSON format. So yeah, that's what the specification is defining. Like you should be writing YAML or JSON, but in this specific format with this specific structure, right? What for? Is just so then JavaScript, Python, Java, any language can understand that format, that information. It can read it and transform it to messages, right? That's the idea. You know what I mean?
I do understand. My second question would be, I understand what async API is, and I understand what Kafka is. Both are somewhat
Mm-hmm.
similar in the way they both handle events and objects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have experience working
Similar.
with Kafka, but you can use Kafka in Java or JavaScript or Python, and you can code it
Yeah.
out. So if you can just show me how to code out async API, or not code it out, but I do have a few sample APIs or few event listeners, but I do not. I know how to write YAML files, how to define servers, how to define paths, how to know that this path will be listening for this query. But
Mm-hmm.
then with except the server path, I can also do that in, let's say, React or Python or JavaScript using the route function or any other function. So that does not provide a lot of value until unless you know how it works in code. If you just maybe
Yeah.
give a short demo so I can understand.
So the thing, before I jump into any demo, so I want you to understand something. So the thing is, um, this is not a programming language, right? So AsyncAPI is not a library. It's not a programming language, right? It's not something. It's not something that you can do stuff with. It's not something. It doesn't let you do stuff like a library with. We have other tools that recognize AsyncAPI format and let you do stuff, but AsyncAPI itself, the specification, right, doesn't let you do anything, right? And I'll explain that. So the thing is that async API is for defining those interactions. You said that, for instance, you can have Java or Python to send messages to Kafka and to receive messages from Kafka topics, right? So you can do the same thing with, I don't know, .NET language, right? With .NET and WebSocket, right? Or AMQP, right? Any kind of protocol, any kind of language, and so on. So not just Kafka, not just Java. It's also like .NET plus WebSocket or plus MQP or AMQP. Like there are many protocols. The thing is that what they all have in common, all these protocols and all these kind of applications that you can develop and to send messages and receive messages and so on, is that they all have the concept of a message, right? So you can send messages and receive them. They all have the concept of a topic, if you want. If you're familiar with Kafka, you know that what Kafka topic is. So in MQP, you have some a similar concept. In MQTT, you have topics. In WebSocket, you don't. But what we do instead is we assume that instead of assuming that there's no topic, what we assume is there's a single topic where everything goes through, right? Flows through. It's a single topic only, right? That's what we assume here. So I said messages, topics.
WebSockets, not WebSockets per se, but
Yeah, so protocols. Let's say can be Kafka, WebSocket, MQTT, AMQP protocol. How do you communicate with the server, right? How client and server communicate with each other. The server in this case could be a broker, Kafka broker, right? Or can be a website server, right? And your client can be a Java application that is sending and receiving messages to Kafka, or can be a WebSocket client on the browser or somewhere else, right? So they all have in common that like it's there is a server somewhere, usually a broker, usually but not always. There is your code, your application, right? And your application is connecting to this broker, this server, right? We call them servers, and sending messages and receiving messages from there, right? And those messages have information inside, right? Those messages have usually headers and payload. Depending on the protocol, it might contain more stuff. Like in the case of Kafka, it also contains a key, a field called key, right? That's also possible to define with Kafka, but that's another story. So the thing is that usually you have payload and headers on the message, on the content of the message, right? So that's also something that we can define with Async API. And the thing is that what we're doing here is not coding. We're not coding anything. With Async API, you're not coding anything. You are defining how the communication happens or needs to happen, right? So it's more like, if you think about it, it's more like a configuration file, right? So AsyncAPI will become more like a config file. It's just defining like, hey, the broker is there, and that's the host and the port that you should be connecting to. Maybe you have a description to describe, so this is the production broker, this is the development broker, whatever. So this is the version and the title of my application. These are the topics. The topics are in AsyncAPI are called channels, right? So we use channels because, yeah, in some protocols it's called topic, in some other protocols it's called routing keys, event name. There are many names for different things. We just call them channels. So yeah, it's an information channel, and so what you will be doing is here are the topics or the channels that my application is going to be sending or receiving from. And if I'm sending to this topic, this is the kind of message that I should be sending. This should be the headers. This will be the shape of the message. So that's, and I want this to be very clear. Like we're not specifying in AsyncAPI the content of the message, right? Or the information that is going to be sent. You can't. You don't know upfront, but you probably know the shape of it. Like you don't know if I'm gonna send information or receive information about a user, right? Imagine that we have a topic that is called user signed up, right? And you're gonna receive a message every time a user signs up. You're gonna receive the user object on that topic, right? The user information. So you know that the user will contain email, will contain the full name or display name, maybe the birth date, maybe everything that you might have asked the user to sign up, right? So you know that you're going to receive this information at the very least. You don't know, of course, the email or the name, or because that depends on the user that is signing up, right? But up front, you know at least the shape of the object. You know that it's going to contain email field, name field, and birth date field, right? So, and you know the type of each of the fields. Like this email is going to be a string, and its format needs to be an email. You know that the name is going to be a plain string, no format. And birth date, you know that it's going to be a string, but the format is a date time maybe, or just a plain date, right? So you know the shape, and that's what AsyncAPI does. You define the shape of the message, right? So that is like usually something that you could be doing upfront before you write any code. And then what we propose here is that you do that, you write this kind of document, and with this information, we can generate JavaScript code for you. We can generate Java code for you. We can generate all the code for you, right? You will only have to complete specific parts of your business logic, like when do I send this message? I obviously we don't know, but whenever you have to send it, right? We can do it for you because we know the shape of that message. We can even validate when you receive a message, your code could actually validate that the message is well structured, right? Because imagine that someone is publishing the wrong message in the wrong topic, right? You will be receiving it, and then your client will be like, "What is this?" You try to access name, and name is not there. So it must be there, or email or something. So it breaks, right? So we can actually, before your code gets the information, we could be validating it against the definition that you gave us in the AsyncAPI file, right? That's the thing. So that's one way. That's called usually design first. You design your interactions first, and then you do the code, right? That's why it's called design first, or spec first. Some people call it different ways. And then you have the opposite approach. You write the code first, or you already have the code. Because it's an old service, you already have the code there, right? But you want to have an AsyncAPI file for that code. So people what usually do here is that they annotate their code. They put annotations on their code. And then they use a tool that will go through all the annotations in their code and will generate an AsyncAPI file, right? What for? well, because with the AsyncAPI file, then you can generate documentation. You can generate beautiful documentation, and it will be somehow automated. You write your code, and it will automatically be. You have a CI process somewhere, and in some place there will be a script that will be generating your documentation and publishing it to a developer portal or something, and you don't have to worry, right? You only write your code. Of course, you need to let's say not forget that the annotations in your code, of course, and you need to make sure that the annotations are right. Like if you're expecting to receive an email if this field is an email, you need to annotate it like, hey, this is a string and the format is email. If you on the email field on your code, you have an annotation that says it's a string, but it's a date, right?
Yeah.
Then the AsyncAPI file is going to be wrong, right? So, but yeah, it's easier. Like it's easy to maintain like this. People usually default to that specific way of working and so on. So yeah, and that's usually called code first. Right? So you write the code first, and then from there you generate the rest. Right? Each way has pros and cons. Right? Some people prefer one, some people prefer the other. There's no way. There's no best way here. That really depends on what you prefer and what you need as well. Some other people prefer to just use tools that will sniff your traffic. So you use a tool that will connect to your broker and start sniffing all the messages that are flowing through all the topics, and then writing or generating this AsyncAPI file for those messages and those topics. The difference there here is that you don't know who's publishing, or it's not easy to know who's publishing and who's receiving those messages. But at least you get the definition of the messages and the topics, which is already something, right? So yeah, and this one I don't know. This one is not very popular, but I don't think it has a name. But yeah, it's common. It's common, but not so popular.
I understand. This helps a lot. I understand very better now. Very clear. Thank you.
No problem. So yeah, so the thing. So just want to add that like it's a definition format. You cannot do anything with it. You need tools to do something with that. So AsyncAPI initiative, right? The whole initiative, the whole open source initiative, not just provides the format itself, the specification, but it also provides a lot of tools, right? To do, because in the end you need to do things with this. Because the format alone is useless, right? So you need to do something with it. So we provide all sorts of tools, for instance, to generate documentation, to generate code out of an AsyncAPI file. That's the generator tool. What else? So we have framework like Glee that is taking the AsyncAPI file as a config file. So it's a little bit of a different approach. So instead of generating code or generating the AsyncAPI file from the code, what we wrote here is a framework. What we're writing actually, it's not production ready yet. It's a framework, a type framework, more specifically, that will let you write just your business logic. So you write only the business logic that you need to execute whenever you receive an event. If I receive the user signed up message on the user signed up topic on Kafka, then I want to execute this function with the information, and you give me the information as an input, as a parameter of the function, and I will do something with it. Maybe producing another message, sending another message to Kafka as a result, or multiple. That depends. So yeah, but the cool thing about this approach is that you don't need to worry about the logic, writing the logic on JavaScript or TypeScript or any language that allows you to connect to Kafka reconnect if the connection drops. You don't need to do anything of that. Like you only have to write like what do you do with the message. What are you going to do with the message? The rest is handled by the framework because all the information is on the AsyncAPI file. So it's like I don't need you to do anything. I don't even need you to validate your messages, right? Because we're gonna validate it for you before it arrives your function, right? So if the message is not valid, you're not even gonna receive it, right? You're not even gonna receive it on your function. So you can just forget about you can just be sure that whenever you receive it's valid. It's valid information. It's gonna have the email field, the name field, and the birth date, and they're gonna all be structured correctly, right? So it's like a validation beforehand. And all sorts of tools like Modelina is another one that's generating only the part of the message and the schemas. So, for instance, if I have a user message or a user schema, then Modelina is going to generate a Java object with all this field, or a Python dictionary, or a JavaScript object, or whatever. Right? So, and many other tools, of course, Studio, CLI, so yeah. So that's, I guess, that's more or less. There are many other tools as well. So, but yeah, I also like these are the pretty basics.
I understand. I understand it a bit clearer now.
Okay.
Async API is just the path the tool is necessary to validate or to make the path happen. It's just poor terminology, but I understand. Uh, could I just ask you for a small example, if it's all right? Just a small example of how we use async API specification file and we define, let's say, there are two channels, A and B, and there's an information passing between A and B. But I don't know how to use the tools use the tools in configuration with async API YAML file.
Let me see if I can join from the laptop because I'm on the iPad right now. But if I can, I'll just join from the laptop. It used to work. Damn it, that's not working. I'll join Zoom. Yes. It's installing updates. Why Zoom? Why? Why don't you ask first if I want or not?
It's all right.
It would be cool if they ask you like, hey, do you want to install updates once you finish the call?
That would be cool.
Before you start the call, because people might be waiting, right? That was cool. That was good. So, all right. All righty. So, I think the best way to demo this is to use actually Studio. I think that's the best way. So yeah, so let's go for a simple example first. Okay. So this is, let's make it bigger. All right. So this is an example AsyncAPI file, right? This is, as you can see, it has an AsyncAPI
version
field
number. Yep.
that say like this is a version number of AsyncAPI itself, not the version number of my file. So this is about my file, about my application. So this is an AsyncAPI file that is defining my account service, microservice, service, whatever. This is a version of my service or of my application. And this is a description. Like the service is in charge of processing user signups. You see, it's a common example. So yeah. And here you list all the channels, right? In the case of Kafka, it will be topics, right? In the case of Kafka, you probably don't have the slash. You probably have something like this, user sign up with underscore, or I think something like this will be valid. So yeah, and then you specify here what you want to do, if you want to subscribe, to publish, and so on, right? This is a little bit trickier, as a version 2. Subscribe and publish is a little bit tricky, but I'll get there later. So this is what you want to do, and this is the message. And here, just for demo purposes, we are using $ref, but this is the same as doing the following. So this is pointing to components here, messages here, user signed up here, right? So this is the same as coming here, copying all of this, and replacing it here. All right, it's the same thing. So we can now, if we want, we could be removing this, right? It's the same thing. Why we were using $ref is this for the $ref mechanism is just so you don't duplicate stuff. So imagine that you have the same message in another topic, or you publish and receive the same kind of message, or you have the same message, this message here in another file. You could be referencing, you could be using $ref and defining the message only in one place, in a single place, so you don't repeat yourself. That's the only reason, right? But again, what I was just doing is, what I'm doing is just not repeating, but it's the same as what I did before. So
Right.
immediately, what Studio is doing behind the scenes is, okay, so I'm gonna take this as an input, right, to the generator. So we use app. So what it's doing behind the scenes, Kinda, right, is using this tool, the generator tool. The generator can use a bunch of templates, what we call templates. So you can generate code, Node.js code, Java code, Python code, but you can also generate HTML, right? HTML documentation or markdown documentation. So not just code, you can also generate documentation. Before, in the beginning, it was using this tool. Now what it's doing is a little bit better. It's using AsyncAPI React component, right? So the React component behind the scenes, what it's doing is, or Studio, what it's doing behind the scenes is using the React component here on the right side to render this information in a beautiful way, let's say, or human-readable way. Because that's like, I mean, it's this part here on the left side is kind of readable, but it's not friendly, right? And if it's only 23 lines, but if it gets to thousands of lines and it can easily get there, then it's not readable, right? It's not easy to read. So this is making it easy for you to consume this information. So for instance, here we have, this is the account service 100, it's taken from here. This is the description that we have here, right? And here we list all the operations. So it says like you can subscribe to the user signed up topic, right? The user signed up topic has a message called user signed up, and the payload of that message is display name and email. Display name is a string that is the name of the user, and email is a string with the format email. That is the email of the user. And it's saying additional properties are allowed, so you can put more stuff along with display name and email, right? And here you have an example. So an example of explaining can be string, whatever, and email can be string, but with format of an email. This is a generator. This is generated automatically, so that's why it's saying display name string, right? Because it has an idea about the meaning of the field. So yeah, and in general, in this document, this is a short one. We find a list of messages which are the same as here, right? So this one is like, this is the operation, the subscription to user signed up operation that accepts this message. And these are just a list of messages, which is the same one as before, but without the operation. So yeah, so what I mean is that this is taking this and converting it to readable or human readable information. We could get a little bit deeper here, and we could do something like servers, Kafka, or let's say production. Instead of Kafka, let's call it production. URL, it's going to be, I don't know, production, my company, or Kafka, mycompany.com. Protocol is Kafka, right? And that's really showing up there, as you can see, right? And yeah, let's just have a description. Production Kafka broker. Yeah. So yeah, you see that now we have it here in a nice way, and you see that this is Kafka production. The security by default, because we haven't specified, it's saying that it's plain text, so there's no security basically. It's all unencrypted, but we could specify security here, right? So it could be just, I think that was the Scram shell. I think that was the way to do it, but this one needs to be defined here. Security schemes. Okay. If I manage to do this from the top of my mind, I will be surprised. Oh, we have the auto completion. I love it. I didn't know that. So yeah, you see, so so that's cool. So the thing is that you can specify security is Scrum SHA 512. So this is a type of security that Kafka accepts, right? And it says that again, security protocol is SASL plain text, but the SASL mechanism is Scrum SHA blah blah blah. Okay, so you can specify all these things. And that's the thing. You can add more information on descriptions and so on. So you can add descriptions here, blah, 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 whatever you want to do. So again, this is a way to describe all this stuff, right? So let's make, yeah, go ahead.
So this is just the, so there are different templates, right? This is the HTML or Markdown template. How would
Yeah,
we convert this into Java or any other programming language?
yeah. So I'm going to remove this because I don't know how this is going to work with the example. Because the code generators are not very updated, I would say. Well, I think. So from here, you can generate code or docs, right? And download the code, right? So we can click here and say, I want to generate .NET, Nets project, Golang, Watermelon project, HTML, which is the same as on the right side. Java Spring Cloud Stream project, Java Spring project, Java project, Markdown, Node.js, Node.js WebSocket. Obviously, Node.js WebSocket doesn't make sense because it's Kafka, Python, Paho, TypeScript, Net, blah, 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 all this stuff. So let's generate, for instance, Java Spring Cloud Stream project. Are you familiar with Java? Okay. I'm glad because I'm kind of familiar still. It's been a lot of years I don't touch it. Oh yeah. So as you can see, it's downloading the code in zip file. So I'm going to open the zip file, but I don't think you can see it. Let me just let me open this in VS Code maybe to be able to see it. So And so let me share this screen and what you can see. So I think it's good enough. So this is the generated code. You see that this is simple readme, account service, version 1, blah, 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 all the information we had from the AsyncAPI file. All right, well, that's too much. Generates a POM XML file. That's and that's like the packaging from Maven. But yeah, it's been a lot of years. So yeah. So and here's the code. So you have main, Java, resources, blah blah blah. So the application is file is the configuration file for the application is, since it's Spring Cloud Spring, you need to specify all the stuff. So function definition is user signed up supplier. You see all these names are taken from the AsyncAPI file. And all the bindings for the string, right? And all the logs and so on. So if we come here, you'll see that all the code has been generated. This is Spring Boot application. I'm missing something here. Yeah, I'm missing some code generation here. Let's say some parts of the code, but yeah, that really depends on the template you choose. So yeah, this is generating the application, starting the logger, starting the application here, and here is like I'm gonna just sign up to the user information, and you can add your business here. So this is where you actually add your code. This is what the part that we cannot autocomplete. We cannot generate because yeah, we don't know what
The business project.
what your project is going to do, right? So that's up to you. So yeah, I'm missing this. So I'm missing this anonymous schema here that it hasn't been generated. Maybe it's because we didn't have. Let me check if I can change it. But maybe it's because we didn't have a name on the message, or it wasn't taking it for some reason. But yeah, I think you get the idea. So you get the code generated, and you can then run this code, and it will work. Obviously, this code, I'm doubting it's going to work as it is. But yeah, this is a simple example. It's probably a template that is not a so yeah. Let me try to generate. You're not gonna see it, but I'm going to Studio and generate a Node.js project. The same way I was generating Java, I'm gonna generate the Node.js one. And yeah, so I download it, and I think this one. So I downloaded the new the code in Node.js, and I'm gonna open it with Studio with VS Code. All right. All right. So I think this one is a little bit more complete. So you get the AsyncAPI YAML that you wrote along with your code. You get some README and how to make this service, this specific application run. And you get Docker file and everything, right? But going to the source code, you can see that there are some routes like we're gonna, this one is the opposite. So it means that we're sending the user signed up object. And here there's all the logic already generated to validate it. And this is missing something here, as you can see. And it's because we're missing some details on the AsyncAPI file. So yeah, so here you can just I don't know, like send user signed up or send, and we'll have to come here and just give it a name, right? So this is business logic, right? So before you want to send a message, you might want to do something, or as you receive the message, you might want to, right? So here's all the generated code that you can use. Does it make sense, more or less? So the whole experience here is a little bit brittle and weak, right? It's fragile because as you can see, like there's that really depends on the template and the code generator that we're using, how complete it is, right? So like this one was more or less complete, but it was having some errors, missing information, which maybe could have been generated somehow. So it's not perfect. It's not even close to perfect, I would say. The Java one was like, I don't know, but I think it was missing things, many things. So yeah. But the idea is there. The idea is that anyone can jump in, create their own template, their own code generator as well, and generate code, the code that they want. So using their preferred template, code templates. You can, if you have already a code base or a coding style or a way to style your project that you like, you can convert your own project into templates and use it directly with your own templates, not with the official file, let's say. So that's the cool thing, that you can then be generating code out of AsyncAPI files. Or you can generate a Glee project, and from Glee, you can make it, you should be able to make it work easily, right? So that's the whole idea. That's the whole flow, right? That's the design first flow if you want. If you want the code first, then it means that you already have the code, and you'll have to go and annotate the code. An example will be not here. An example here will be this. There's a tool called AsyncAPI. It's a Java code first tool for AsyncAPI specification, right? So this is maintained as part of AsyncAPI as well, and it's precisely that is annotations that you can use on your code. There's an example somewhere. Would be cool. No, I don't think so. I don't see examples. Maybe on the plugins. No. All right. So no example. I wonder if maybe Springboard has some examples. This Springboard examples. Kafka example, for instance. Yes, and so this is the code here. So let's see the Springboard application, not here. Yeah, so here you have an example. Schema, description, example payload model. Description, blah, 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 example, blah, blah, blah. Right. If it's required or not. So you have like, you have all these kind of annotations. Right? Yes, I'm exploring this for the first time.
I know a little bit of Java and Kafka, so I can make sense of it. I worked for a little while as a data engineer.
Perfect.
So I understand.
So yeah, so more or less is so AsyncAPI configurations here. Yeah. So the thing is that you could be generating AsyncAPI from the Kafka, from the code, from the Java code, right? So that's the yeah, that's more or less how things work, right? Or how the things are. Sometimes it's not how it works. Again, we're still like we've been around for a few years already, but as a big community, let's say as an active community, we haven't been around for many years yet. So, and we are maintaining a lot of tools, right? So you could consider this like this is still like getting started, right? That's why you see like many things don't really work yet. They're like kind of brittle, and so on. But yeah, the idea is that with the community effort, at some point, everything will come together and work perfectly. Hopefully one day, not perfect. I mean, it's never gonna be perfect, but yeah, it will always mostly work. Right? So yeah.
Thank you for this. It really helped me.
No
And I know
problem.
we are a little bit over time, and you might have prior commitments.
No, I was actually looking at the time, but I'm fine. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them.
I'll first like to play with it more and
Okay.
test it more. But I understand. I have a really good sense of it now, and this really helps the GSOT because I know what to write specifically now. So
Perfect.
really helpful.
I'm glad. I'm glad. So if you need any more help some other day, sister, and this goes for anyone watching the recording as well later. If you have any doubt, any questions, whatever, just ping me on Slack like you did, for instance, or not just me, like ping anyone Slack on the channels as well, the public channels, not only in the private messages. And there's a contributing channel, and I'm saying this because I may be busy doing stuff, and I may not be available for whatever reason, right? But if you post the message on the contributing channel or in the specification channel if your question is about specification, or in tooling channel if you're questioning about tooling and so on, there will be a lot of people willing to help, I'm sure, including me. So if you are, or if you're shy and you're not sure, or you are feeling that your questions are stupid, because, or basic or whatever, because it happens to all of us, and you want to use private messages, I'm happy to use private messages for this kind of thing. And yeah, we can do this. We can do this. I asked you in the beginning if we can publish this. You said yes. If you tell me that